Reactive training systems.
So a question I get asked now and then is, how would you use an emerging strategies concept if you were interested in hypertrophy? If your main goal is to just improve muscle size? Well, it's a lot more difficult to do in that case, because the whole idea behind emerging strategies is that you perform a dose of training and you measure a response. And as long as you're getting a response, then you continue to dose the training in that way. And when you're no longer getting a response, you pivot and apply a different stressor to the body. Well, that's a lot harder to do in the sense of emerging or in the sense of hypertrophy, because you can't measure the response in the same way. When we care about strength, we can look at something like estimated 1RM or just even absolute weight on the bar and tell that we're getting stronger or not. Hypertrophy takes a lot longer before you can see visible results, and even things like measuring muscles, it's not it's not detailed enough, it's not precise enough to allow us to see week-to-week changes. So the way that I would go about it is benchmark a different rep range. So I would establish whatever metric it is that I care about. And it can be a different metric. It might even, I'd have to give this some more thought and probably run some trials on it, but I think you could even choose a different metric for each development cycle. So let's say we're talking about back development. Maybe in one development cycle, you're looking at pull-ups. And maybe in another development cycle, you're looking at chest-supported rows. And another one, maybe you're looking at a cable row or something along those lines. You could probably mix it up. And as long as strength is improving in kind of a moderate rep range, I would say, 8-ish, 8 to 10 reps. If you're able to use more weight in that range, I would say that that's an indication that your training is on the right track. It's not foolproof. To some extent, you're still going to measure things like movement proficiency. You're still going to measure things like local muscular endurance. But there's really not much way around that, at least nothing that I can think of. And I think that if you find that you're using more weight for your 8 to 10 rep range over time, that's going to be a positive thing. That all else being equal, it's going to get you closer to where you want to go. As far as using different movement benchmarks, keep in mind that one of the reasons that you want to do emerging strategies is to figure out what is it that's producing the best results for you. And what I mean is, you don't have to take a powerlifter approach of doing the same big 3 in every single development cycle. You're not restricted in that way. So again, let's take back development. If you do pull-ups in a block, and then you follow it up with chest-supported rows as your benchmark for the next block, and then something else, it doesn't mean that what you learn about pull-ups will apply to your chest-supported row. You'll have to parse those things out. It'll take longer to establish what it is that's really transferring well to your pull-up, but I would think that it's going to lead to a more balanced overall development. And also, whereas a powerlifter is training the deadlift in the competition format, basically every development cycle, every microcycle, forever, I think if your interest is primarily bodybuilding, you can even get away from certain exercises entirely. And in the sense of being able to resensitize yourself to a training stimulus, if anything's going to do it, I think that would do it. And I think there's some reasonable reasons to believe that it will. So that's what I would do in terms of training for hypertrophy from an emerging strategies perspective. Just keep in mind, if your primary interest is not hypertrophy, if your primary interest is in strength, keep the goal. Okay, if you're doing this for strength, then measure strength and weigh the effects of everything on strength. I've talked to a few people that seem to get the wires crossed a little bit and think, well, I want to do a hypertrophy focused block. So I need to, think about it from a hypertrophy perspective and what training modalities are going to produce the best hypertrophy effect. Well, wait a minute, because if you're a power lifter, the thing that you care about is that your 1RM is going up. So a hypertrophy block should still drive that effect of your 1RM going up. And the times that I've run what I would consider to be successful hypertrophy blocks, it's done that. There are other reasons to run hypertrophy blocks. If somebody needs, a more extended break, they need to get away from the competition lifts a little bit. But in those cases, it's still not hypertrophy in the sense of hypertrophy is the goal. You're not reorienting how you're benchmarking training, how you're judging whether training is working or not. So keep the goal a goal. If you're a strength athlete, keep your focus on that 1RM. If you're a physique athlete, then you're going to take a different approach to judging whether or not the training is effective. But that approach is going to be generally consistent based on the type of athlete you are, not necessarily the type of block that you're doing.
Reactive training systems.